We touched on new polling at the top of the program that shows strong support for the Mueller investigation. That same polling from ABC News and the Washington Post also shows this difference of opinion concerning the president's dispute with his attorney general over the Russia probe. 62% back the actions of Attorney General Jeff Sessions. By that, I mean his recusal. Only 23% side with the president here. As for his job approval, it stands at 36%. 60% telling pollsters they disapprove. That's the highest it has been in the ABC News Post poll. And on impeachment, Americans are split. 49% believe Congress should begin impeachment proceedings. That is more than say they should not. And that's with midterm elections just a bit more than 2 months away, which certainly makes for plenty to talk about. With Axe Files host and former Obama senior advisor David Axelrod. David, our friends in the numbers business will tell you that when you look at polls, look at them all together. The average is a more predictable, reliable indicator than one single poll. Maybe it's an outlier. Still, this poll comes after a very tough week for the president, after the Cohen guilty plea, after Paul Manafort was found guilty. Do you think that's what we're seeing here?
Well, I think that may be part of it. I mean, every poll can have certain unique features that have to be discounted. But when you aggregate the most recent polls, you do see a drop in the president's approval rating. He had been in the sort of low 40s. It's now running around 40. This poll's lower than that. And it stands to reason after the couple of weeks that he's had, that his numbers would fall. So there's really no good news for the president in this poll relative to the investigation, relative to his own rating. And if you're a Republican candidate out there, this has to be very, very concerning.
Well, let's talk about that. What do they then do about this? Because I do not think you're going to see many Republican candidates try to distance themselves from the president, maybe in a very few swing districts, but not overall.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had a conversation today with a high-up Republican operative, and yes, I do have friends on both sides of this. And what he said was, look, there's a real concern about turnout, and these individual members of Congress aren't going to inspire people to come out in large numbers. Mm-hmm. The one guy who can inspire the base to come out is Donald Trump. The problem is that he also has a really negative impact on swing voters and independent voters. And so, it's really a tough choice. And in these swing districts, they'll probably opt to try and distance themselves. But let me tell you something, it's very hard to distance yourself from a president of your own party. That rarely ever works. And so, I think that they are battening down the hatches for a stormy November.
In this poll, by the way, the president only had a 78% approval rating among Republicans. Now, I know 78% sounds like a lot. That is low for the president in terms of where he has been with Republicans in his own polling. So that's interesting. If that trend continues, it'll be really problematic for him, but we don't know that yet.
Well, there's another factor in a number of polls I've seen, John, which is that the number of people who declare themselves as Republicans has dropped by a few points. And so you have a lot of not a lot, but some segment of Republicans now identifying themselves as independents because they don't want to identify themselves as Republicans in Trump's party. So he is, yes, his number is dropping a bit among Republicans, at least in this poll, but he's also commanding a smaller base there. And so all of these things are concerning. Listen, Donald Trump has defied conventional wisdom in the past, so one has to offer that disclaimer. But no one can feel good about this poll if you're sitting in the White House or if you're running on the Republican ticket around the country.
Well, what about the impeachment numbers, right? 49% of people in this poll said they would support Congress beginning impeachment proceedings, which was more than the number who said they did not. It's unclear to me who's going to like that number more, Republicans or Democrats, because I don't hear Democrats jumping into impeachment all that willingly on the campaign trail. Not as much as Republicans who were warning their voters that if you vote for Democrats, you'll see impeachment.
Well, you and I have talked about this before, John, and, as I mentioned before, the Republicans are concerned about turnout among their base, and their base is motivated by Trump. if they feel that Trump is in some sort of existential situation here because of impeachment, they may be more likely to come out and vote. At least that's what the Republican theory is. That's what you hear Steve Bannon and others talking about. But Democrats, I think, are hesitant in part because swing voters aren't necessarily signing up for immediate impeachment. I think they want oversight. I think they want some. They want Congress to exercise its constitutional responsibilities, but they want to make sure that this is just not a political food fight. And so you're going to see many Democrats continue to be muted, and I think that they should properly be muted because Mueller has to report, and when he does, they have the opportunity to judge that. But for Republicans, this is a turnout thing.